Hi everybody, this is Mr. Castro speaking, and I'm recording this video for my English 11 students at San Ysidro High. So earlier this week, we learned all about paraphrasing, and we practiced paraphrasing by completing this assignment. So if you were absent during this class, or if maybe you were present but you had a hard time understanding what to do, then make sure to watch this video very carefully. That way, this assignment will become more understandable to you. So let's start with the daily learning target. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to demonstrate comprehension of what an author is saying, as evidenced by paraphrasing a passage. So what that basically means is that you'll be able to prove that you understand what you are reading by explaining in your own words as much as possible what the author is saying. So once again, you'll be able to prove that you understand what you're reading by explaining in your own words as much as possible what the author is saying. So that's what it means to paraphrase. When you paraphrase something, you are explaining in your own words what the author is really saying. So here's some background information about the speaker. His name is Emmanuel Acho. So go ahead and pause this video and take a moment to read all about Emmanuel Acho. After reading the background about Emmanuel Acho, take a moment to watch this video of his speech. He gave this speech last year during all of the riots that were happening across our country over the summer. So that's to give you some context for the speech. After watching the speech, go ahead and take a moment to answer these two questions that you see on this slide. The first question is based on the background information, and that's on the slide right before the video. So based on the background information, who is Emmanuel Acho trying to inform or persuade? Who is his likely audience? After you identify the audience, then you want to answer question 2, and that's going to be based on the video. So based on his speech, identify one important idea from his speech, and also add on your thoughts or any questions you have about that particular idea. After answering those two questions, now it's time for us to start to learn how to paraphrase. So when we paraphrase, these are the 5 steps that we want to follow very carefully in this particular order. So the first step is to read the passage several times. You want to read it more than once to make sure that you are understanding what you're reading, because if you don't really understand what you're reading, you can't really paraphrase that. You can't really explain that in your own words. So read it and do your best to understand as much of it as possible. Once you understand the passage, then you want to identify the main idea. So for each section of the speech or article that you are paraphrasing, you want to figure out the main idea of that section. Just like how in an essay, you have different paragraphs, and each paragraph normally has a topic sentence or a body thesis. So it's very similar that when you read each section of a speech or article, there is some kind of main idea for that section. After identifying the main idea of the section, then you want to highlight or underline all of the key concepts in order. And I'll explain how to do all of this in the first section. So if any of this seems confusing, that's okay. You're learning something new. And as you keep practicing, it'll become more doable. Step number 4, write your own version of the text. So that's when you paraphrase. So after you complete steps 1, 2, and 3, then you get to the paraphrasing part. So when you paraphrase, you start with the main idea at the very beginning of your paraphrasing, and then you continue by paraphrasing each key concept in order. And then lastly, for step number 5, once you're finished your paraphrasing, Then you compare your paraphrasing with the original text. If you see that there are way too many similarities with the language, then make sure you change some of the words. And if necessary, use a thesaurus. So let's go ahead and do this first section of the speech together. So this is from Emmanuel Acho's speech. And in this section, let's go ahead and take a moment to read it. And then after we read it, we'll follow these 5 steps in order. MLK said that rioting is the language of the unheard. For years, Black people have tried peacefully protesting going back to 1965 and before with the Selma March, and that didn't work. And then in 2016, Colin Kaepernick, he took a knee, and that agenda got moved to a flag, which was never the goal. He just wanted to raise awareness on social injustice, so that didn't work. And so now we've seen riots because Black people and hurt people are trying to get the attention of the oppressor. They're trying to raise awareness of the oppression. Okay, so now that we've read this section of the speech, we want to make sure we understand it. So this is step number 1. Read the passage several times. So if there's not, or if there's something here that you're not understanding, go ahead and read it again. Look at the sentences and the words around that particular part that you're confused about, because sometimes when you look at the context clues, that can help you better understand what you're reading. So let's start with the first sentence. MLK said that rioting is the language of the unheard. So MLK is Martin Luther King Jr., and rioting is the language of the unheard. What that basically means is that when people riot, it's how they basically express their frustration of being ignored. So that's what the quote means with that word unheard, right? They're unheard, they're ignored, they're not being listened to. So because of having their voices ignored, it's led to rioting. If we continue reading, then we notice that Emmanuel Acho provides multiple examples of how Black Americans have peacefully protested in the past. Going back to 1965, peacefully protesting. With the Selma March, that did not work. In 2016, Colin Kaepernick, he took a knee. He wanted to raise awareness on social injustice, and that did not work. So for the next few sentences, those are all examples of Black Americans protesting for social justice. And as we finish reading the section, then Emmanuel Acho explains why the rioting that happened last summer happened. He says, we've seen riots because Black people and hurt people are trying to get the attention of the oppressor. They're trying to raise awareness of the oppression. So basically, because they've had their voices ignored for so long, they've been protesting for so long, and it hasn't really led to anything, it's led to these riots. So that connects back to the very first sentence of this section, when Emmanuel Acho quoted Martin Luther King about the rioting being the language of the unheard. So that's step number 1. We've read the passage, we understand it. Now for step 2, we want to identify the main idea. And if you look at this section and you think about the main topic, this is mostly about Black Americans rioting and like the reason for why they are rioting. It's because their voices have been unheard for so long, right? So let me go ahead and I'll go into edit mode, and I'm going to go ahead and type that first sentence. So the main idea of this section is that Black Americans have been protesting racial injustice for many years, and their voices have been ignored, which has led to rioting. So Black Americans have been protesting racial injustice for many years, but their protests have been, I'll put ineffective. Protests have been ineffective, which has led to rioting. Okay, so that's the main idea of this section. So now that we have the main idea, let's go back to the steps to paraphrasing. We've read the passage, step 1. We have identified the main idea, step 2. Now we want to highlight or underline all the key concepts in order, and that's step number 3. So how you want to do that is you want to read the section from beginning to end, and each time you notice the author transitioning to a different topic, then that's a different key concept or key detail. So let's look at the first sentence. MLK said that rioting is a language of the unheard. Sentence 2. For years, Black people have tried peacefully protesting. So notice that sentence 2, it's not about the same topic as sentence 1. Sentence 1 is about rioting. Sentence 2 is about peacefully protesting. So sentence 1 is its own key detail. It's a completely different topic from sentence 2. So I'm going to highlight sentence 1 with my mouse. And next to the letter A at the top of the page, I'm going to click on the little highlight icon, and I'm going to highlight that sentence. And you can pick any color as long as it's a light color. That way the text is readable. Next, we want to find the next key detail or key concept. So next, Emmanuel Acho talks about peacefully protesting. 1965, the Selma March. Colin Kaepernick peacefully protested in 2016. And Emmanuel Acho explains that all of this, or all of these attempts to peacefully protest did not work. So see, everything that I've highlighted right now with my mouse, this is all about the same topic. It's all about peaceful protests that have not worked. So because it's all about the same topic, it's all going to be highlighted the same color because it's the same key concept or the same topic. And once again, just pick any light color. That way the text is readable. And then the rest of the section, let's read it. And let's see if this is all about the same topic. If it is, then we'll highlight it all the same color. If they're about different topics in this last section, then we'll have to split up the highlighting. Okay, and so now we've seen riots because Black people and hurt people are trying to get the attention of the oppressor. They're trying to raise awareness of the oppression. Okay, that looks like it's all about the same topic to me. It's all about the riots and like why it's happening. So because it's all about the same key concept, I'm going to highlight that the same color. Okay, so now that I have found the key concepts, and that's step number 3, then we want to write our own version of the text. Step number 4 is to paraphrase, and we're starting with the main idea and continuing with the key concepts. So we have the main idea here. This is the main idea of the whole section. Now we want to continue with the key concepts in order. So the first key concept is this yellow sentence. So in my own words, as much as possible, I want to explain what the author is saying here. And what he's saying, he's basically quoting Martin Luther King Jr. To show how rioting is the result of people being frustrated for not having their voices heard or their voices acknowledged. So I'm going to put that in my own words. According to MLK, if people riot, it's because they're not being listened to. Because they're not being listened to. And because I'm paraphrasing the yellow sentence on the left, I'm going to highlight this yellow. So this is a correct example of how to paraphrase a sentence. I've put it in my own words. I'm communicating the same idea as the original sentence. That's a correct example. Sometimes it's helpful to look at an incorrect example. So let me show you an incorrect example for how to paraphrase. MLK stated that rioting is the expression of the ignored. So if you look at the original sentence on the left and the the attempt to paraphrase on the right, you'll see that all I did here is I changed a few words. MLK stated that, or MLK said that, MLK stated that. Writing is the language of. Writing is the expression of. So you don't want to just change some of the words. That's not how you paraphrase. You want to, as much as possible, put in your own words. And let me give you a quick analogy. Let's say that I'm reading the section and you're reading the same section, and I tell you, I don't understand what the author is saying in that first sentence. Can you explain it to me? Can you paraphrase it to me? Hopefully you wouldn't just read aloud that sentence and change some of the words, because that would not help me understand what the author is really trying to say. But if you look at my paraphrasing here, then that would be a better way to explain, because it's more in your own words, and that would be more likely to help someone understand the meaning of that sentence. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish up our paraphrasing. We just need 2 more sentences. So for the blue section, we want to, in 1 sentence, explain what the author is saying by using our own words. In that blue section, the author is simply showing how Black Americans have already peacefully protested multiple times, but those protests have largely been ineffective. So Black Americans have protested for many years, but protests have been largely ineffective. So I'm going to highlight this part blue because right now I'm paraphrasing the blue section of the speech. And lastly, we just need the pink section. And so now we've seen riots because Black people and hurt people are trying to get the attention of the oppressor. So the author's explaining in this last section why the riots are happening. So Black Americans are rioting because they are tired of being ignored and want to have their, let's say, concerns, let's say, addressed. And I'm going to highlight that pink because right now I'm paraphrasing the pink section of the speech. Okay, so going back to the instructions, we completed step 4 by starting with the main idea and then continuing with the key concepts. So you'll see the main idea of this section is in our own words right here. That's why it's not highlighted, because it's the main idea of the entire section overall. And then in order, we paraphrased the yellow part, the blue part, and the pink part. Okay. And if you're wondering like how many key details or key concepts you need to highlight in each section of a speech or article, it really depends. Sometimes a section is really short. So if a section is really short, for example, just a few sentences, you probably won't have that many key concepts. It might just be 1 or 2. So for example, this next section isn't as long as the first section. So you might not be able to find as many key concepts here, and that's okay. That just means it's going to give you less to paraphrase. And then finally, just to complete our paraphrasing, we are going to step number 5. We want to compare our paraphrased version with the original text, make sure they're not too similar. So if you look at the original and look at my paraphrasing here, you'll see that I'm communicating the same ideas, but they're very much in my own words. I'm not just changing a few words. I'm not copying the sentence structure. It's very much in my own way of explaining. Okay, so now that we have completed section 1 together as a class, then on your copy of your assignment, you're welcome to type up the exact same paraphrasing that you see here on the screen. And then once you've copied this example, you will see that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more sections to complete. So for your classwork assignment, then you need to paraphrase at least 3 sections. Once again, paraphrase at least 3 sections of your choice. If you want to paraphrase everything, that'll get you some extra credit. But once again, for full credit, at least 3 sections of your choice. And as you paraphrase each section, just make sure you're following these steps in order. And your paraphrasing should be like this, where you have a main idea at the very beginning and the key details on the left highlighted, and then paraphrase on the right. Okay, so that's all for today. Once you're finished with your assignment, turn this into Google Classroom. If you have any questions about this, if you get stuck on any part of the assignment, feel free to email me or ask me for help in class. So thank you guys for watching and have a great day.